Okay, righto. I'm sure that there are a million thoughts going through the brains and minds of people around the table today after not only this morning but certainly this afternoon session, which again has been very, very interesting. So we have a question time now. So we've actually got some time up our sleeve, which is beaut. So you don't have to rush into it, but have a think about the opportunity. Thank you.
Hello, thanks for all your talks. Steiner's a question for you. Sorry, I'm Lisa from Peninsula Fresh Organics in the Mornington Peninsula. Ducks. Ducks do eat our crops. Ducks are not our friends. We happen to live and farm in an area that have very high value horses that do in fact occupy paddocks near our vegetable farms. What type of trials have you done with horses and cattle around these farms? And what type of impacts does the laser have? Because being organic, we're looking for an organic solution. We can't have gas guns because the horse industry won't allow it in our area. And the residents think gas guns have bullets. So we're looking for a new solution, but we have to be aware of our neighbours. Just wondering what your thoughts are.
Yep. Wow, very good question. Thank you. Basically, we did quite some trials, how other animals are affected by the laser beam. If you talk about cattle, like cows or horses, they're not affected. In the Netherlands, we got quite some farmers who have problems with ducks and geese sitting on the grassland of a dairy farm, and well, the cows and the ducks and the geese just share the space. But we were able to repel those ducks and geese without affecting the cows in a negative way. So for your situation, it can be beneficial because we're not scaring away the horses, we're not affecting the cows, but we do address the bird issue.
Okay. Questions? More questions? Yes, over here. Thanks. Sorry.
Good afternoon. Question to David, vertical farming. With this vertical farming indoors and everything else, do you get the full effect of, or do you get the vitamin D effect that you get on the outdoor crops from the sunlight? How do you cover that? Do you get the same nutritional value or not?
So I think the question is, what's our nutritional density compared to field farmers? Is that correct? So it's either the same or we could actually influence it to be greater. So we've tested for a bunch of different nutritional profiles across a bunch of different products. And one of the cool things is we could increase nutritional density. So you could stress a plant or introduce different inputs to a plant that can increase the nutritional profile. Part of it's seed variety, but beyond that, you take the same seed, put it in a greenhouse, put it in a field, put it in our system. We could increase the nutritional density just by, again, stressing it or supplying different inputs to the plant.
In your overheads, it shows the root system coming out under the boxes. Are they in water or any? Does it look like it's hanging there free?
Yeah, it is. So the air in aero farms is for air. The roots want oxygen. The leaves want CO2. So we put in supplemental CO2 and we make sure the roots have a healthy oxygenation. So we missed, it's the aeroponics, the genesis of the innovation, it started with a nozzle that doesn't clog. So everything, there's a small farming, or for aeroponic farming, they're able to like replace the nozzles. In big industrial commercial farms, you can't. So our head innovator, he created a nozzle that looks nothing like a nozzle. And then he was thinking, what's the right growth media to support that? So our growth media is a type of cloth. So the roots literally just hang in air, and we miss nutrition to the root structure. And that also reduces a lot of weight and allows us to like structurally frame up
Yes, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock.
Jared Jakey, Rugby Farms. Steiner, this is for you again. Is there any plans down the track to maybe target other pest species like bats, rabbits, and maybe all the way down to insects and those sorts of things further on?
That's something we do put quite some research in. How are other animals affected, particularly other animals causing nuisance. So we tried cats and dogs, monkeys. It's not working on them. We currently have trials if we can scare away elephants in Africa. Rabbits we tried, that's not very effective, but for me, which could be very interesting, is what are the effects on bats, because that's something we are not aware of. We haven't trialed it, because I understand you guys have quite some issues in the fruit farming industry with bats. So I would love to meet with farmers who have those issues as well, so we can look and really trial and error if we could address those animals.
Okay, while you're thinking, economically, what's it? A small farmer, how's he going to handle this? What are you going to? What sort of programs have you got built up for airports to small and whatever?
No, basically, we as a company have 10 different products. The very cheapest one is really something for households use, which costs 250 euros. That's just a handheld tool, a bit like the one I brought with me. If you talk about an automated version, the one I showed to you, which is the AgroLaser Autonomic, which is very efficient and very helpful to farming industry. That's a price of 5,000 euros just for the product. And we're currently having talks with I would say service providers here in Australia. We could also provide maintenance and installation, but like that 5,000 euros, that's for product only. So those are kind of like the cost involved for this sector. Aviation is a bit of a different story. Those prices are higher, but that's because their needs are a bit different.
Not that I'm looking for one, but I was just curious, yes.
Could be, we could ship one right here.
Okay, right. How are we going? Any more? There's no hurry, no hurry. Yes, another, yes, again.
Sorry, Steiner, I'm on the roll.
Totally fine, it's good.
We actually happen to be near an airfield, which I'm just thinking about now. What type of information do we need to supply to them, just for basically approval? Because I could see perhaps if we did have one of our neighbours might say, oh, they use a laser, blah, 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 the airfield, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
So what type of application relationships do your farmers have with airfields and that sort of, in the sales process? And
you mean on a regulatory point of view?
Yes,
paperwork stuff?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, right. Usually what we see is that since the product is very low powered in energy, that means that there are not like importation restrictions. And if you are near an airfield, I do think it's good to, let's say, inform them, and it has a designated use, because here in Australia, that's what we see that's important, that the authorities like the police and the airport in your situation are informed that there is a laser being used for a professional application, and that it's not a teenager shining onto aircraft, for example. That's basically it, because in terms of import restrictions, it's fine due to the fact that it's low powered.
Yes, over here.
I'm Chantal Williams from Auckland Estate in Tasmania. Tara, this is around the food waste issue in the States. A few weeks ago there was a noise for a few days many fruit and vegetables. And we all laugh at social media photos about funny carrot shapes that you might find, but God forbid any of us would buy them or eat them. So I think in terms of what you're doing in saving, in finding useful food waste, what else is going on in the States that you can see or that you know of in terms of changing people's perception of what shape, colour you can buy, or what the supermarkets will actually take for you to buy? Because a lot of people at farmers markets and so on don't really mind if things are out of shape, but it's dealing with the mass retailers in terms of what we can get into store.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. A lot of what's needed to increase utilization of food waste is just general education of the consumers to open them to the possibility of utilizing produce that isn't perfect, especially in the United States. We're very well. I think in Japan also you find that frequently in other countries, but we're very particular about the way our produce looks. That said, the newer campaign and the companies like that are coming out, specifically marketing misshapen fruits and vegetables. My understanding of what I've heard is that they're doing very well in terms of finding outlets for those products. So I guess I'm hopeful that things will shift in the future, and maybe the larger grocery stores too will be more open. I think some grocery stores now have sections where they have those misshapen or lower quality produce in certain sections, and you can buy it for a lower price also, which can be very important to a lot of folks because fruits and vegetables do cost a lot. So those type of programs we're seeing, as well as kind of the efforts in terms of the types of things that we're doing to utilize those products and value-added items that are further processed and ingredients.
If I could add to that, I agree. I think there's a big problem here, and there needs to be a shift in thinking. Two of my pet peeves. One is stems. So stems have like a nice nutritional density, kind of a little awkward when they kind of jar out of your mouth. But can we get people to enjoy some of those kind of products? And we're having one thing we're doing is we're having conversations with some of the retailers, some of the thought leaders in taste, to introduce more stems in products, and it's having some effect. We'll see how that translates. Another thing at Aero Farms we've done is we rewrote the specification. So in the category of leafy greens, usually it's like a general spec. This is what a width is. This is what a height is. Go for it. And it's relatively kind of consistent within the whole category, which is really dumb because an arugula leaf looks totally different from a kale leaf, et cetera, et cetera. So one is kind of writing what the spec is per variety, but changing the boundaries. So this whole concept of, these are the mins and maxes and only give us that is bogus because biology doesn't work that way. You have short plants, big plants, and so forth. So what we did is we said, here's an average, here's a 90% confidence interval that the height, width, or whatever you want to measure is between there, but you're going to take it all because you should, and these are good products. So like I said, we'll see how this manifests itself, but so far we're winning that conversation.
Hi, it's a question for Steiner. You mentioned about keeping birds away from glass houses and like that. Now we don't particularly have any issues with that, but coming into our sheds, how does your laser technology work? Does it work on sitting outside the shed, or can you have it indoors?
Yeah, you can have them indoors. What we usually see is there are two options. It's either way the farmer or the owner of the shed of the building buys a handheld product and scares away the birds manually outside of the shed or from inside to the outside. You do have to open the windows because they do have to get out in a way. That's more of like a direct intervention. But another possibility would actually to get an automated machine I showed you during my presentation and install it a bit high in the shed, because usually that's where the birds start nesting, and then really shine the laser beam in the hotspots, in the little like areas where they will start and sit and nest, and therefore in a more preventive way make sure the birds do not come there. But that's all about, I would say, assessing the situation, because we do have large warehouses as being our customer, and they might need up to 3 automated systems to address their issue. But we also have just small sheds or small warehouses which only need 1 automated system. Yeah, it will be placed inside, and it's a bit up to the user if he wants to have a manual solution or an automated solution. But both options are very viable.
Thank you. Oh, yes, over here. Lovely.
Thank you. It's David Nix here from I'm a potato grower from North Queensland, to David Rosenberg. Just with your airphonics, one, how do you harvest? You sort of never indicated how you got up those heights. But also, have you looked at seed production of potatoes from to mini tubes using airphonics?
So, the question is, have we looked at seed potatoes?
Have you looked at producing seed potatoes airphonically?
Potatoes. No. Well, so the answer is we've explored some other products. Right now, building a business is so tough. So I'm a big believer in focus, and we're almost exclusively focused on leafy green products. I mean, not even like herbs, baby greens. We don't even grow larger green products. We don't grow head lettuces. So it's really leafy green products. And this is more of a business decision. There's absolutely elements of what we do that can be applied to row crops, and berries, and potatoes, and other crops. I think more in terms of understanding what impacts plant growth. The economics of potatoes, my guess, would be destroyed. So there's might be some elements of what aero farms can do that can be meaningful to other industries or other varieties. Right now, we are focused on leafy greens. Does that answer your question? Was there something there about seeds?
The reason I'm asking, in North Queensland, we do have a system being developed by DPI where they are producing seed potatoes airphonically, just as you are doing, but not in a
okay, so just
elevated situation.
So small plants, and then they transfer it over to the field.
Yes, when you take potatoes off very small, not much bigger than your fingernail, and that is used then as your foundation seed in the field.
Yeah, so there might be something there we haven't explored it. So for example, our germination process is between 12 and 48 hours, what otherwise is 8 to 10 days. So we could potentially just kind of shock a plant, if you will, in the same way Robert talks about, just using like a system approach, shock a plant and then transfer it over, transplant it over to the field. So there could be something there. We haven't dived deep there.
Okay. We're all questioned out.